With Boro's season pretty much stumbling to an uneventful end with the club, now safe from any relegation worries but very unlikely to challenge for the playoffs too, attention has switched to next season and especially who will be here and who might not be. So in today's video I'm going to run through every current member of the permanent Boro squad, excluding loans because that's coming in a separate video, so subscribe for that. I'm going to be discussing every permanent member of the current Boro team and whether I think they'll be here next season or whether they won't.
He's in and he's snuck it across to Hayden Hackney!
So we're going to go through this goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders and strikers, and we're going to start off with the goalkeepers, firstly with Seny Dieng. Now Seny, of course, will be here next season. I mean, he bloody better be, otherwise I will have Michael Carrick's head on my bedroom wall. But I think, and I know for sure, that Seny Dieng will be here next season. Our first choice goalkeeper, of course, he's been unfortunate this season due to an injury that had him at the team for a while, but as much as I think a lot of our lack of clean sheets has been down to more individual errors, it maybe doesn't look as good on Seny as it perhaps would. I think he's a very solid goalkeeper, and I think he will definitely be here next season. Same goes for Tom Glover. I think he's a solid number 2. Did really well, actually, and exceeded expectations when he did come in for when Seny Dieng was injured. So, yeah, no doubt he will continue here next season as Boro's number 2. And Jamie Jones is an interesting one. Now, I've got him to stay as well, but he is out of contract in the summer, I do believe. Now, it's not exactly a big deal or a big job to replace our third choice goalkeeper, so there's every chance he might leave for first team football elsewhere, maybe in League One or something like that, but I think it's not that much harm for Boro to re-sign him either, rather than have to go shopping for a new third choice goalkeeper. Or the alternative is we let him go and we bring in Sol Bryn or one of our junior academy goalkeepers who are out on loan at the minute. But do you really want to bring them in just to be the third choice? I'm sure you want to give them game time. So it's an interesting one with Jamie Jones. You either replace him with another goalkeeper who's maybe a bit older, who'll happy to settle at third choice. But for me, if we can sign him on, if we can keep him just as a backup to our backup, then I'm happy to do that. And I don't see any harm in him staying either. Into the defenders now, starting with Tommy Smith. Now, Tommy Smith, he is someone who's only got a year left on his contract. So if Boro have the opportunity to sell him, they might. But I do think he'll be here next season. Of course, he suffered a horrendous injury at the start of the season that's had him out for the entirety of this season, and that undoubtedly will put him back in the pecking order and take him some time to recover from. Luke Ayling's come in his place. We've also got the likes of Dijksteel there. Rav Vandenberg can play there. But I do think just because we have him for another year, I don't think we'd get a big fee from him if we tried to sell him this summer anyway. Plus, he's just been injured, so I don't think there'd be much interest in him anyway. I think Tommy Smith will definitely come back into the fold, hopefully in pre-season, and he can play a big part in Boro's defensive back line. Now, it is worth saying, if we do keep Tommy Smith, we'd have to probably play as a 4 at the back. I don't quite think he'd suit the 5 at the back. I don't think he'd maybe suit the right side of a back 3 or the wing back. So it could be system dependent on what happens with Tommy Smith, but I think he's a great, solid, reliable, dependable right back who was absolutely a major part of Boro's successful team last season. So once he comes back from injury, I think he'll still be here, and I hope he recovers from his injury well. Rav Vandenberg. Now, this is more me hoping than anything. I don't know whether he'll be here next season because Rav Vandenberg is by far the best young prospect we have at Boro, and I think a unbelievable signing from the recruitment team who I think will sell for an absolutely humongous fee at some point. I just hope it's not this summer. Now, especially of late, Rav Vandenberg has come into some incredible form. He is so ahead of his years. He's clearly already got brilliant leadership skills. He's one of them defenders who doesn't need pace. He can read the game, but if he needs his pace, he's got it. Essentially, this guy has all the tools to be a top defender playing at the highest level, and I don't think that will be at Boro. I think he'll hopefully have next season with us, and if he does, I think we'll see the absolute best of Rav Vandenberg, and then maybe after next season he then moves on to sign for a bigger side, because I still think he's got one more year of crucial development left in him. If he was to leave this summer, it might be a little too soon for him to make a leap into a Premier League side. So I think the safest thing for him, and he seems to have a sensible head on his shoulders, is to ignore any interest this summer and have another year next season, because I honestly have a feeling next season Rav van den Berg could be absolutely unbelievable in the Championship. And then after next season, Boro will really maximise their investment, and I think we could sell him on for double what we might sell him on this summer, the summer after. So I hope for everyone he stays on for another year. I do look at what happened with Morgan Rogers, and I do think if Boro are given a decent deal, it'll be too much for them to turn down, but I just hope for everyone's sake, patience will pay off here, and it will be best for everyone if he stays on for one more year, and I'm going to put my neck on the line and say that he will be here next season. A couple of other defenders to mention. Clarke, I think he'll be here next season. Been very good since he's come back from his injury. I think he's really come into form, and especially if we play back five, he'll be a big part of that centre-back three on the left. Same for Dael Fry. I don't think there'll be any interest elsewhere for him to leave. Of course, he's injured at the moment, and he's just been sort of a steady defender throughout Boro's recent seasons, and although he may not have lived up to the absolute potential we all thought he had when he first broke into the team, he's still more than a solid centre-back. I think he'll be here next season without a problem. Same for Darragh Lenihan. He's been unlucky with an injury this season as well. Can't wait for him to come back, maybe even before the end of this season. Undoubtedly, Lenihan will be at the heart of Boro's defence for the next campaign. Anfernee Dijksteel is an interesting one, because I don't think Clarke fancies him. He's not really played a big part in Carrick's squad or plans at all since he's come in as manager. You know, Dijksteel's played as and when he's needed to, when we've had injuries in the right back position, and it has to be said, depending on what happens with Luke Ayling, the return of Tommy Smith, you want Rav in the centre of a defensive 3 or 2. We do need bodies at right back, so that maybe warrants Dijksteel to stick around. But I honestly feel like if given the opportunity, Boro will look to sell in the summer and reinvest in a either better right back or a younger right back with that higher ceiling of potential, which is what Boro are doing from a recruitment point of view nowadays. So I am going to say I think Anfernee Dijksteel will be the first Boro player in this list who's not going to be here next season. I think we'll get interest from abroad, a bit like with Mark Bowler last summer, and I think Anf's time at the Boro, unfortunately, will be coming to an end in the next transfer window. Same for Paddy McNair as well. He's the first of Boro's out-of-contract players, outfield, who I don't think will be here next season. I think if there was going to be news on a new deal for Paddy, it would have happened by now, and there hasn't been. So I think, despite him coming back into the team and being absolutely fantastic of late, I don't think he's going to be offered a new deal at Boro. Big reason for that is he's a part of the previous crop of players, or the previous recruitment strategy, if you want to call it that, of players we would sign on absolutely massive contracts. And Paddy, despite being here for maybe 6 or 7 seasons, he's been a great servant to the club. He's still one of the highest earners, and Boro are wanting to progress in this new direction. Lower wage bill. If we were to offer Paddy McNair a new deal, it would be higher than what he's on currently, and I think it would be slightly outside of our current wage structure. So for me, I think that's why there hasn't been a deal struck yet. I'm sure there have been discussions. I have a feeling they've just not come to an agreement, and Paddy McNair is probably going to move on in the summer, and I don't think that's an issue for anyone, really. Now listen, he's come into great form, proven his worth, definitely, but I don't think he's coming in and playing this well because he's trying to play for a Boro contract. I think he's playing as well as he is because he's playing for a brand new contract at another club, and I think Paddy McNair is going to be not short of people wanting him. He's not going to be short of options, and I think he'll be back in the Championship next season. But I think the silence around a new deal for him is deafening, in the sense that I just don't think Boro can get his wages down or give him a new deal that works within the current wage structure. And I think Paddy's incredible years of service to this football club will come to an end in the summer, which is a shame because he's been great since he's come back. But I think naturally he will leave in the summer when his contract runs out, and Paddy McNair won't be here next season. The two left backs I'm going to knock off pretty quick. Alex Bangura, he'll be here next season. He's been unlucky with injuries this term. Let's put him out since the Chelsea game. He'll come back in, hopefully, and challenge Lukas Engel next season, who will also still be here, of course, because he is our best left back at the club, and is only getting better. And a bit like Rav van den Berg, I think next season could be a big, big one for Lukas Engel. So they'll be both here next season. Into the midfield, and we start with Dan Barlaser, who is undoubtedly the most divisive figure or divisive player in Boro's current team, because his form has been very up, very down. He's made some big mistakes and is a bit of a boo boy with the Boro fans. And I personally think he'll be here next season. The reason being is Boro signed him as an investment signing, like we have in this new model. Signed him from less money from Rotherham, and if we do want to sign him in the future, we want to do that at a decent fee. I still think he's got lots of room to develop and improve, but I also don't think he's been played in a system that suits him. And I feel like in a midfield too, where you've got to be really quick on the ball, quick decision making, very sharp with your passing, Dan Barlaser is not that sort of player. He wants time on the ball. He needs them extra few seconds to pick out a pass, and we've seen it many, many times. When given the time, he can pick out some wonderful, wonderful passes. And the incredible chance-creating Dan Barlaser we got from Rotherham has not just vanished. I just don't think he suits the midfield two that Boro are adopting. Which does make me wonder, if an offer come in, there is a chance Boro might look at it and say, okay, maybe this is just not working. Maybe he's not going to fit the system that we want him to play in. And it's just one of them things in football that happens where you just say it's not worked out. But with Lewis O'Brien going back to Forest, Hayden Hackney, who I'm going to get onto next, who I don't think will be here next season, and the whole contract thing hanging over Jonny Howson, we've not got any central midfielders who are nailed on to be here next season yet, which makes the sale of Dan Barlaser seem absolutely ludicrous at this point. So for that reason alone, I think he'll still be here next season. But I am intrigued to see how we use him and if he improves, because if we keep using him in the way we are at the moment, I don't think it's doing him any good at all. On to Hayden Hackney. Now, out of all the Boro players in this entire squad, Hayden Hackney has been the one that I think's been the biggest dead cert to not be here next season, because of just how much he's developed since breaking in at the Boro team last season. Especially going into the end of last season, he was absolutely outstanding, and he started this year pretty good too. It is worth noting he's had injury issues this year which won't have helped his form and his development, and I do think since he come back from his last injury before this one, he's not had a very good spell in 2024. But then again, how many of these Boro players in this squad have had a good spell in 2024? Not many. So I still don't think Hackney's slight, not dip, but maybe plateau in terms of his development is going to stop any of the big guns coming in for him. I still think the interest that has been whispering around Hayden Hackney for a long time now will really pick up in the summer, and a lot of the big Premier League sides will come knocking. And I think just down to Boro's model, which is very much we sign players for little and sell them for big money, I can't see Boro turning down a big bid for Hayden Hackney in the summer. I think it could be like Morgan Rogers. We'll have a price, and it might take a couple of back and forths for us to get what we want. But I think the sale of Hackney will be crucial in Boro being the sustainable club we want to be and giving us the funds to reinvest into improving the rest of the team. We've seen it with Tav, Spence, Tuba over the last few seasons. Boro tend to sell one big asset every season to just maintain the club's trajectory, which is hopefully going up, and the sustainable model that we've adopted now. And it's a shame Championship clubs feel the need to sell one big asset every season to sort of allow themselves to still progress and sign well. That's even happening in the Premier League now, which is bonkers. So it's a shame that football clubs are having to do that, but it's good that we've got one big asset there that I think we'll cash in on, and that makes me pretty sure, out of all the players in this current Boro team, the one I'm most certain won't be here next season, unfortunately, is Hayden Hackney. Riley McGree is an interesting one. Now, there's always a lot of conspiracy theories around Riley McGree, and half of the Boro fan base has somehow made themselves believe this conspiracy that Riley McGree doesn't want to be here, and that he's fell out with Clarke, and he wanted a move in January, he wanted a move in the summer, he's going to want to move. There is no evidence to suggest that any of that is true. It's all hearsay, and there's nothing from Riley, nothing from the manager that suggests he won't be here next season. He has been playing regularly. I still think he's our best player, or one of, and it would be a ginormous loss for Boro if we did sell or lose Riley McGree. And I don't think he's a player who's easy to replace. I really don't. I think his technical ability, his football intelligence, I don't know what we'd have to pay to find a player at this level who could do what Riley McGree does. It would be someone, again, who we're hoping develops into that sort of player. So for me, out of all of Boro's prized assets, you hang on to Riley McGree, the best you absolutely can. And it is interesting that his contract's up at the end of next season. So I hope it's not a case of if a deal comes in for him, we accept this summer because he's not going to sign a new deal. I hope it's a case of we're confident we'll sign him on and we can just crack on next season and work with him on a contract extension. So I'm going to put my neck on the line and hope that McGree is still here next season, because if he's not, that will be a crippling loss for the Boro. Isaiah Jones, I think he'll be here next season. Years gone by, obviously when he was one of the top right wing backs in the league, we assumed he'd probably go and would be sold, and will be one of them prized assets that Boro would sell for a profit. But I can't see that this summer. I think, again, injuries haven't helped Isaiah, and he's not quite the player at the peak of his powers, and probably doesn't have as much interest as he did a couple of seasons ago. Obviously, if he hits form next season, he very well might start sparking interest again, but I just can't see enough of it this summer, and I do think Isaiah Jones will be here next season. Same for Finn Azaz. He's a brand new signing. I still think there is so much to come from Finn Azaz, again, if he's utilised properly. He's a recent investment that, of course, Boro are still hoping to see the fruits from over the next season or two, so yeah, undoubtedly Finn Azaz will be here next season. And finally, in the midfield, we've got Captain Fantastic, Jonny Howson. He is, along with Paddy McNair and Jamie Jones, one of the three people whose contracts are up in the summer, and I think we've got to sign him on again. You know, every season we get back to the same point, this same question: will we give him another year? And it is very much a year-by-year thing at the moment with Jonny Howson, but I think he's proven this season that he warrants another contract extension for another year. He's 36 and he has no signs of slowing down or getting worse. In fact, he only seems to be getting better. He is the Benjamin Button of football. And when you look at him and you compare him to the rest of the centre midfielders we've got, the fact that he probably is the most consistent performer out of the lot and the one you can rely on the most in centre midfield. And he's the one who I think makes everyone alongside him play better. You know, whether it's Barlaser, Hackney or O'Brien, whoever he's partnered with seems to rise up their level when playing alongside Jonny Howson. So even if at the start of the season this year I would have said, yeah, now is the time to replace him, he's once again made me believe, and I think every fan believe, that he is just too good to let go. And I think we signed Jonny Howson on for another year, and undoubtedly we'll be here having exactly the same conversation in a year's time. And on to the strikers. Firstly, we have Emmanuel Lath. No doubt he'll be here next season. Another one who I think could be a big player for us next season, along with Engel, along with Rav. I think, yeah, he could be a massive player for us, Lath, and I think is showing potential. And I would be very intrigued to see what he does if he has a season without any injuries. Matthew Hoppe, he won't be here next season. I forgot he was even at the club, if I'm honest, but clearly not fancied by Michael Clarke. He went out on loan this season and San Jose Earthquakes didn't opt to sign him on. I don't think he's good enough for Boro. It's an investment signing that's failed miserably, and I think Boro will be desperate to find someone who can take him off our hands in the summer. So unless there is some absolutely crazy U-turn turnaround, which in fairness we had with Chuba Akpom, I can't see that level of redemption arc coming from Hoppe. I think he'll be gone in the summer. Alex Gilbert, a player we signed earlier this season from Brentford's younger side, I think their B team. He's never broken into the side this season, and I think it's quite telling that even when Boro were crippled with 14-15 first-team injuries, we never saw Alex Gilbert once given an opportunity really in the side, and I think that maybe says a bit about what Carrick thinks of him and that maybe he's not up to standard yet, but I don't think that's going to make us sell him. I think Alex Gilbert will probably go out on loan in the summer. I thought he might have in January, but maybe it was just such a up-in-the-air time with Boro, injuries, etc. We didn't feel quite comfortable letting him go. I think we'll do that in the summer, and I think Alex Gilbert is still an investment signing with lots of potential. I think he needs game time, and I don't see him getting that at the moment, so I think a loan to a side, maybe in League One, will do him the world of good. But he won't be here next season. He'll be out on loan instead. Sammy Silvera, he'll still be here next season. Another player who we've banked on developing with potential, and it is safe to say it's been a very up and down season for Sammy Silvera. Moments where I think, yeah, this is the player we've signed. He looks really, really good. And then others where my head's in my hands and I want to shake the guy in frustration because of some of the chances he's missed. I can only hope that Sammy refines that side of his game and improves. I'd like to think he will, because in pre-season he showed so much promise for Boro, and I honestly thought would be a top signing, which we haven't quite seen happen yet. But I'm willing to give him another year, and I think next season will be a big one for Sammy to see whether he can make a claim to stay in Boro's side and improve. And I think if he doesn't, then a decision might be made next summer on whether we stick with him or move him on, but I think he's still got next season to develop and be given a chance in this Boro side. So as much as fans are frustrated with him, I think Sammy Silvera will definitely still be here next season. Josh Coburn, I'm going to say exactly the same as what I said with Gilbert. I think in an ideal world he'll be out on loan next season. He was of course meant to be at Plymouth this season on loan, but Boro pulled the plug on that in the summer because we couldn't sign a striker. So there's every chance if Boro somehow fail to sign a striker again in the summer, which would be a disaster, he might still be here come the first game in August. But I do think Boro will want to loan him out. I think it's the best thing for him too, because as much as I think Josh Coburn's made some very good contributions to this Boro side this season, I don't think we're the best place for him at the moment. You know, I don't think our current system complements him well. I think a side like Plymouth would have been absolutely perfect for him, and I think to maximise his potential he needs to be somewhere else playing every single week in a system that suits him down to the ground, and I don't think that's at Boro, and I don't think Boro should rely on him to be our goal scorer throughout the season when we want to go for the playoffs, because he's not quite at that level yet, and I think it's a little bit harsh on him putting that pressure on him being the striker that's got to score us the goals to get us into the playoffs like we've had to do this season. He was put in an unfortunate position that I don't think's done him that good. So a loan's definitely the best thing for Josh Coburn, and I hope he gets the right loan in the summer. And finally, Marcus Forss. He'll be here next season. He simply has to be. Boro haven't got the room to move in terms of strikers, and he's the best finisher at the club. I just pray he has an injury-free season, because I think we've all seen if he does, Marcus Forss will net us more than enough goals to make us competitive, and he, along with Riley McGree, is someone I think simply has to be in this Boro side next season, and I think he will be. So finally, looking at my squad graphic, which of course I've utilised throughout the season and various transfer windows, and this is what it did look like before with the current squad. This is what it looks like now with the players who I'm expecting to leave, loan players I've took out as well. I am going to discuss them in a separate video. This is Boro's current team from a permanent point of view. And as you can see, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. I think the goalkeeping department's the only place where I feel comfortable. Maybe left back as well with Engel and Bangura. You might bring a third choice in there. But I do think across the board we're going to need reinforcements. But thankfully, unlike last season, not an overhaul. You know, it's not like our best players are being replaced. You know, we still have Clarke, Fry, Lenihan and Rav in central defence. And I'm displaying this as a 4-2-3-1 just because that's been Michael Carrick's chosen formation, not the back five he's utilised. But I think if we're playing a two at the back, I think we'll be alright. We could maybe need one more centre-back, especially if we play the back three. That might give us a reason to sign Ayling on, I don't know. Right back is another place where I think we need to improve. I think Smith will be our first choice again next season, but I do want Boro to invest in a younger right back, looking more into the future, because I don't think Tommy Smith's going to be here forever, and I think we do have to start looking to the future in that position. And then suddenly in the centre of midfield as well, this is what I meant about us looking really, really light. Take O'Brien out, take Hackney out. We've got Azaz who can cover there, but we've only got Howson and Barlaser, assuming we sign Howson on. And this, as you can see, is a reason as to why we have to sign him on. Because we're so light in midfield, it would require a little bit of an overhaul in there, I think, if we didn't sign on Jonny Howson. So I think we definitely need additions in central midfield. And I think we need a real smasher. You know, one of them really big defensive midfielders who breaks up the play. We don't want to keep relying on two ball carriers or two technically gifted centre midfielders. As much as Carrick wants that in his system, I think we just need someone who's going to help cover a little bit, win them second balls, clean up the mess, a little bit like what Howson does, which allows the other midfielder, whether it's Barlaser, Azaz, or whoever, to really thrive and go off and have the license to do what they want. So that's what I want to see in midfield. I think on the left we could do with a bit more depth there, albeit McGree will always be my starter. We could improve there, and the front line needs work. We've known that since the start of this season. I think Azaz and McGree might be the two 10s, but without Crooks, without Rodgers, Greenwood going back, we look light there. We definitely need competition for Azaz in behind the striker. And if we move McGree into the central area, that then leaves us really light on the left. So just in the attacking three behind the striker, we need depth there. The right's probably the only area where I think we might need work, but I'd rather have Forss up front. So you've got Isaiah Jones and Silvera maybe on the right-hand side. So I think we definitely need additions there. Because I want Marcus Forss up front. I want him up there, maybe alongside Lath. I'm not too sure. But as we've saw and as we've seen for a lot of this season, if we get injuries, we can't rely on Josh Coburn being around. I still think we need that third striker who's a bit more of a prolific bagsman alongside Forss and Lath, and I think them three combined will be enough to fire us, hopefully, into a competitive position next season. But that's my squad graphic at the minute, and where I think we'll be, where I think we need to improve, and of course I'll talk a little bit more about that in depth when we get to the summer. So that's my video, guys, on the current Boro squad, the players I think will be here, won't be here next season, and how I think the squads might be looking. Of course, when we get to the summer and we see who definitely is and isn't here, and we know exactly who's signed on and who isn't, we will revisit this properly. But that's my thoughts on each player individually. Do let me know in the comment section below which players you think will be here, won't be here next season, which ones we might sign on, which ones we won't. And as I say, I will be discussing the 4 loan players in more detail in a separate video and discussing whether I think we should sign them on or not. But until next time, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, do hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload here on the channel. And I'll be back with a video on the loans very, very soon. So until then, take care. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.